The Young and the Restless spoilers. The wedding that so many people in Genoa City had been waiting for, the one that carried the weight of decades of history, forgiveness, heartbreak and renewal, was finally happening. Danny and Christine, after surviving years of detours, misunderstandings, outside interference and emotional scars that never fully healed, had chosen to pledge themselves to each other once more. It was not a young love burning with impatience nor a naive rush toward a future they did not yet comprehend. It was the quiet, steady recognition of two souls who had been pulled apart by the noise of life and had somehow found their way back to one another. Their decision to marry at this stage in their lives felt like an act of courage, a statement that love could still bloom even after it had been weathered by disappointment and time. And yet, despite the joy surrounding the occasion, the celebrations were overshadowed by the persistent shadow of Phyllis, who could never watch happiness unfold without the reflexive need to destroy it. Christine had anticipated some kind of disruption. After all, Phyllis had been the third party, the saboteur, the emotional grenade between her and Danny for decades. But even Christine underestimated how far Phyllis was willing to go to insert herself into a wedding she had not been invited to, a ceremony she had no place in, a moment she had no right to touch. Everyone expected Phyllis to scheme, manipulate, or show up uninvited and deliver one of her infamous emotional monologues that blurred the lines between apology and accusation. Everyone expected drama, but no one expected danger. And yet the whispers began days before the ceremony, soft at first, then more insistent. Someone had tipped off the police about a dead body connected to the wedding venue. The rumors spread like wildfire through the underground channels of Genoa City, the places where secrets were traded like currency and the faintest hint of scandal could topple reputations and relationships overnight. Officers were already investigating, combing through anonymous phone calls, half-coherent messages left at odd hours, and tips from people whose voices were disguised and trembling. The strange thing was that the call did not mention a crime in progress but claimed that a body was already hidden somewhere inside the restaurant that would host the reception. It was the kind of call that could have been dismissed as a hoax, a dramatic prank pulled by someone resentful or jealous, but the details were too specific. The exact name of the venue, the timing of the event, the description of a back storage room rarely used. The authorities had no choice but to take it seriously. Christine and Danny had no idea that, as they rehearsed their vows and exchanged quiet smiles in the privacy of their home, an investigation was already forming around their wedding like storm clouds gathering behind a deceptively calm horizon. What made the situation even more explosive was that Phyllis's name kept entering the conversation, her history, her instability, her bitterness over losing Danny not once but twice, her tendency to lash out when cornered. Everyone knew she wanted to destroy the wedding, but would she really go so far as to stage a death? Or worse, would she be desperate enough to create one? That was the question echoing through the precinct, hanging in the air like smoke that refused to dissipate. Phyllis herself was spiraling. There was a wildness in her movements lately, a frantic desperation that made even her closest allies uneasy. She talked too fast, schemed too openly, and justified her actions with the kind of emotional logic that made sense only to her. She insisted Danny was making a mistake, that Christine had manipulated him, that she alone knew what was best for him. Her obsession blurred the line between love and possession, and every attempt to reason with her only made her dig more deeply into her conviction that she had to stop the wedding at any cost. And that was where Kane entered the picture. A man who found himself entangled in Phyllis's vortex of chaos not out of love, but out of his own complicated motives and failures. Kane had been drifting through his own crisis of guilt, regret, and self-destruction, and Phyllis had a way of pulling vulnerable people into her plans by making them feel needed. She tapped into Kane's insecurities, his desire to rectify past mistakes, his longing to matter to someone again, and she turned that emotional vulnerability into a tool. Kane knew that helping Phyllis was dangerous, illogical, morally wrong, and yet he kept showing up to her secret meetings, kept listening to her unhinged plans, kept convincing himself that maybe he was simply preventing her from doing something worse. It was a lie he repeated to himself so often that he began to believe it. Meanwhile, the wedding preparations continued unaware of the chaos building beneath the surface. The venue staff worked tirelessly, decorating the hall with soft golden lights, delicate white flowers, and a nostalgic charm that mirrored Danny and Christine's relationship. Their friends and family were arriving from different corners of the country, buzzing with excitement, sharing memories, laughing over how long it had taken the couple to find their way back to each other. If only they knew what was coming. The first sign that something was wrong occurred the morning of the ceremony, when a police car was seen parked near the venue. At first, everyone assumed it was merely routine security for a high-profile public event, but soon more cruisers arrived, quietly, discreetly, almost ceremonially. Officers moved around the perimeter with the kind of tense precision that suggested they were expecting to uncover something horrific. The staff was questioned. The security cameras were reviewed. The back entrance was secured. And then, as if the day needed one more layer of dread, a rumor broke among the guests. Gossip whispered that the body might belong to someone connected to Phyllis. Some speculated it was an accomplice. Others thought it could be someone she had argued with recently. Some even wondered if the body was meant to frame her, or even worse, help her fake her own death once again. The theories multiplied, twisting more wildly each time someone repeated them. Word eventually reached Christine, who felt an icy dread crawl slowly up her spine. She knew instantly who was behind the chaos, even if she did not yet know the details. Danny felt it, too, a heaviness pressing against the joy they were supposed to be celebrating. But neither wanted to cancel the wedding. Neither wanted to give Phyllis the satisfaction of knowing she had disrupted their day. They stood firm, determined to proceed, refusing to let manipulation win. But the police did not stop. They could not. An anonymous call reporting a corpse could not be ignored, especially not in a city with the kind of turbulent history Genoa City had. Officers eventually moved into the restaurant, searching the storage rooms, the basement, even the kitchen. They found signs of tampering, boxes moved, a door left partially ajar, a faint trace of something metallic in the air. But the real shock came when the investigation pointed toward the possibility that someone had access to the venue the night before. Security footage revealed a shadowy figure, masked, hooded, moving with purposeful precision. The camera quality was too low to identify the intruder, but the body language suggested familiarity with the building. And then, in the final seconds of the recording, before the figure disappeared into the darkness, there was a brief turn of the head, a flicker of red hair caught by the faint glow of a hallway light. It wasn't definitive. It could have been anyone. But the resemblance was enough to send a shockwave through the room. Enough for the officers to escalate their investigation. Enough for whispers to swirl like a violent storm. Was Phyllis involved? And if so, how far had she gone this time? Kane, meanwhile, was falling apart. His nerves were shot, his conscience was screaming, and the weight of what he knew, whatever it was he and Phyllis had been involved in, pressed onto him like a physical burden. He paced outside the venue, torn between confessing everything to Christine or disappearing completely. But guilt has a way of snapping a person in two, and Kane was already dangerously close to breaking. The wedding, miraculously, still moved forward. Christine walked down the aisle with tears shimmering in her eyes. Danny looked at her with a tenderness that spoke of years of healing. For a moment, the outside world blurred, and only their love existed. But beneath the beauty, beneath the music and vows, everyone felt a tension humming through the air. Everyone knew that the police could interrupt at any moment. Everyone knew that whatever was happening behind the scenes could explode into chaos before the ceremony ended. The question of the corpse loomed like a dark omen. Who was it? Where was it hidden? Why had someone chosen Danny and Christine's wedding to expose, or plant it? And most chilling of all, how deeply was Phyllis involved, and what had Kane helped her do? As the ceremony unfolded in a fragile balance between hope and dread, an uneasy silence settled over the venue, thick enough to smother the soft music echoing through the hall. The vows had been spoken, the rings exchanged, and yet every heartbeat in the room seemed to throb with the same unspoken fear. The police were still here, still searching, still circling the edges of the celebration like predators waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Danny and Christine forced themselves to hold on to their joy, but their eyes kept drifting toward the officers weaving through the building. The truth was closing in. Whatever had been hidden inside the restaurant, whoever had been placed at the center of this macabre mystery, was about to be revealed. And the revelation threatened to tear open wounds far older than this wedding. The tension reached its breaking point when two officers abruptly re-entered the hall, their expressions tightening into something grim, determined, and unmistakably urgent. They approached the lieutenant who had been supervising the search, whispered something into his ear, and watched as his entire posture shifted into a stance of decisive authority. That microscopic shift rippled through the hall like electricity. Guests froze mid-conversation. The music faltered. A foreboding hush settled over the celebration, as if the entire universe had paused, holding its breath. Christine felt it first. A familiar, icy dread crawling slowly through her bloodstream, tightening around her chest like a fist. Danny reached for her hand, but before either of them could speak, the lieutenant stepped toward the center of the room and lifted a hand, signaling for silence. It was not the dramatic interruption Phyllis had fantasized about. It was not the theatrical spectacle she imagined would expose truth, save Danny, or teach Christine a lesson. It was much colder, heavier, and infinitely more dangerous. "We need everyone to remain calm," the lieutenant said, his voice steady but strained. "A body has been located on the premises. We will begin questioning individuals shortly. No one is permitted to leave." Gasps erupted through the hall, followed by murmurs that swelled into a frantic storm. Someone cried. Someone else swore under their breath. A few guests instinctively edged toward the exits, only to be gently but firmly redirected back into place by officers. Danny and Christine exchanged a look, a heavy, sorrowful acknowledgement that this wedding would now be remembered not for their vows, but for the horror unfolding around them. Phyllis, hovering near the back of the room in the shadows where she hoped no one would notice her presence, stiffened. For the first time, doubt reached her eyes. She had wanted chaos, yes, but not this. Not a real body, not a death tangled with her desperation. This had spiraled far beyond her intentions, and the realization flickered across her face like a torch hitting gasoline. Meanwhile Kane, who had been trembling quietly in the corner, went pale, so pale he looked almost translucent. He knew something he shouldn't. Something he had tried to bury beneath layers of denial, guilt, and rationalizations. And now those truths were clawing their way to the surface. The lieutenant continued, "We have not confirmed the identity of the deceased. We ask for patience as our investigation continues." But patience was impossible now. The room erupted into speculation. "It's a setup. This is Phyllis, has to be. Maybe it's a stranger. No, it's someone connected to a guest. It always is." But the most chilling whispers, the ones that spread fastest, belonged to two names, Noah and Sienna. One a Newman. One a controversial figure in Genoa City's recent scandals. Both connected to Kane. Both connected to unresolved chaos brewing beneath the surface of town. And both recently missing from public sight. Christine felt sick. Danny felt the floor tilt beneath him. The lieutenant asked to speak privately with both of them, not because they were suspects but because protocol required them to be informed. The body had been found hidden behind stacked crates in the restaurant's storage room, half covered by discarded linens that suggested someone had tried hurriedly to conceal it. The preliminary observation suggested the body had not been dead long hours, not days. Which meant the person had died the night before or early that morning. Which meant someone had entered the venue under cover of darkness to hide them. Which meant the killer might be in the room right now. When the lieutenant finally revealed the next detail, Christine felt her knees weaken. "We found a bracelet," he said slowly. "Broken. caught on a nail near the body. He held up a small evidence bag containing a delicate piece of jewelry, silver, feminine, and unmistakably familiar. Christine recognized it instantly. Danny did, too. "That belongs to Sienna," Christine whispered, her voice cracking. The world began to spin. Sienna? The troubled young woman who had been entangled in volatile relationships, dangerous alliances, and emotional upheaval. A woman who had been struggling lately, lashing out, isolating herself, making cryptic comments about people watching her and punishing her. A woman who had recently been seen in a heated argument with Cain. A woman whose connection to Phyllis had always been unsettling and mysterious. But that bracelet did not confirm whether she was the victim or the suspect. And that was where the terror deepened. The lieutenant, seeing their panic, clarified, "The bracelet was found near the body. It does not confirm whose body it is. We are still working on identification." The cruel ambiguity tightened around everyone like a noose. Sienna, alive, dead, or responsible? Noah, safe, missing, or lying cold in a storage room? The wedding guests murmured frantically, and the police began asking questions one by one. Meanwhile, Cain slipped away from the crowd, pacing, gripping his hair, muttering to himself. Phyllis spotted him and followed quietly, her movements frantic but calculated. She pulled him into a corner. "What did you do?" she hissed, her eyes wild. "Cain, what did you do?" But Cain wasn't listening. He was unraveling. His voice broke apart, shaking as hard as his hands. "It wasn't supposed to go like this," he whispered, staring at the floor as if the truth were carved into the tiles. "She wasn't supposed to get hurt. I thought she just passed out. I thought she was breathing. I thought." Phyllis grabbed his shoulders, shaking him. "Who? Cain, who?" And Cain snapped, the guilt clawing out of him in a strangled, broken exhale. "Sienna." Phyllis staggered back. Shock widened her eyes. Cain wasn't finished. "She came to me last night," he whispered, voice trembling with devastation. "She was frantic. She said she needed to talk. Said she had information about someone planning something at the wedding. Someone dangerous. She said she wasn't safe. I tried to calm her. She pushed me. I pushed her back. She fell. Hit her head. She wasn't moving. I didn't know what to do." Phyllis stared in horror. Cain continued, tears spilling down his face. "I panicked. I thought if she was found near the venue, everyone would think I killed her. Or think you were involved. And I didn't want to ruin everything. So I hit her. I thought she was alive, Phyllis. I thought she was alive." Phyllis felt her stomach twist violently. She wasn't innocent, not even close, but she had never meant for a real death to happen. And certainly not like this. "And Noah?" Phyllis asked, heart pounding. Cain shook his head rapidly. "I haven't seen him. I swear. He wasn't there." Meanwhile, in another corner of the venue, the police had finally confirmed the identity of the body. Officers moved with a sharper urgency. A forensic specialist approached the lieutenant and handed him a file. He read it. His face hardened. He walked directly toward Danny and Christine, who braced themselves for the devastating truth. "The deceased has been identified," he said quietly. "It's Sienna." Gasps erupted around them, followed by cries of shock, confusion, and horror. Christine felt tears burn behind her eyes, not from personal closeness, but from the sheer tragedy of it. Danny swallowed hard, shaken by the realization that a troubled young woman had died on the night meant to symbolize hope. But the lieutenant wasn't finished. "There is something else," he added grimly. "We have reason to believe she was trying to contact someone before her death. Someone she trusted. Someone she feared might also be in danger." Christine felt her stomach drop. Who? The lieutenant looked up. Noah Newman. And with that single sentence, the nightmare deepened. Because Noah was nowhere to be found. And suddenly the question changed, from who is the body? To where is Noah? And more importantly, who wanted both Noah and Sienna silenced on the night of Christine and Danny's wedding?